Hi guys, great to have you with me today. I just finished setting up this R6 Mark II. That setup video will be coming out soon, but that also reminded me that there's certain settings that I change on every new camera that I get because otherwise the camera is pretty much useless to me. And there's one setting in particular that has driven me crazy for a long time until I finally figured out that it can be turned off in the menu. So let's take a look at the 5 most important settings I recommend changing when you get a new camera to take better photos. On the latest camera models, the compression algorithms have become so good that I'm now comfortable shooting compressed RAW instead of full RAW, because that comes with a few benefits. You're not only getting smaller files, so you can have smaller memory cards and don't need as much hard drive space, but there's an added benefit, and that is that your buffer becomes significantly larger when you're shooting compressed RAW because the file sizes are smaller. On a camera like this R6 Mark II, if you're shooting at 40 frames per second in full RAW, hitting the buffer is pretty easy. But when I change it to compressed RAW, it's much easier to shoot for extended periods of time. So that's one reason, also on my R5 cameras for instance, that I shoot compressed RAW. The difference between RAW and compressed RAW is basically non-existent, and only in very extreme scenarios, like if you severely underexpose, the full RAW will have slight benefits. And let's take a Sony A1 for instance. The full RAW files are over 100 megabyte and the compressed RAW files, almost at the identical image quality, are around 50 megabytes. So you're saving half the file size per file, which is quite significant. Nikon also has fantastic compression algorithms on the Z9. The only reason I had to shoot full RAW when I was using Nikon is that my favorite noise reduction software, DXO Pure RAW, has, at least until now, not supported the compressed Nikon RAW files. So that's why I had to shoot full RAW, because otherwise it was difficult for me to denoise the files. But to change it from RAW to zero, you can either go to the quick menu by pressing the Q button on the back of the camera, or you can simply go to the red menu, and the very first tab there is image quality, and then you can go simply from RAW to zero. When we have a new camera, it's also very important that we make sure that we nail our exposure every time, and there's a few little helpers. If you're using a mirrorless camera, you can already see your exposure in the viewfinder, which is fantastic because it gives you a great guidance, and it's very hard to too much over or underexpose the images. But there's a few more helpers that I would recommend turning on. And the first one of these helpers is the highlight alerts or blinkies. These show you on the back of the camera if there's areas that are too overexposed. If something is flashing black, it means that these areas have no detail anymore. However, keep in mind that the few blinkies on the back of the camera are fine if they are small, because the back of the camera shows you a JPEG version of the RAW file, and the actual RAW file has a little bit more scope to recover those highlights. On Canon cameras, if you want to activate the highlight alert, you navigate to the blue menu and then go to highlight alert, and we enable that. I always recommend having 2 memory cards in your camera no matter what, because there's a few added benefits of having that. Because what you can do when you have 2 cards in your camera is to go to record function and card folder selection and enable the automatically switching from one card to the second card once the first card is full. So that allows you to always keep shooting when there's fast action happening, for instance. So when I fill up the first card, the camera will automatically write to the second card, and I will never miss a moment. What's obviously also very important in the field is that we check our images for sharpness and composition. I want to look at my images at 100% to make sure that they're sharp and everything is in order. So when I press that little display button on the back of the camera, I see my images. And when I then press the magnification, it zooms in to 100%. So to turn on this kind of magnification, I go to the blue menu, navigate to magnification, and go to actual size. That means that it zooms in to 100% and I see the full file size on the back of the camera. On this R6 body, there's also the option to maintain the position or to always go to the middle of the image. I like to maintain the position that I zoom to from the focusing point, because then I can flick through all my images and it always stays on the bird's eye, for instance. On an R5, you don't have that option, it will automatically maintain that position. So now that we can zoom into our images and make sure that they're not overexposed, it's also important to learn how to edit your images. And this is where I would love to help you with my masterclass and PROSETS. If you're not fully confident in the editing process or don't know how to turn a boring, dull-looking RAW file into a fantastic-looking fine image, my PROSETS and Masterclass will help you tremendously. With my PROSETS, I enable you with just one click to transform your RAW file into a great starting point, and in my Masterclass, I teach you step by step everything you need to know about image editing in Photoshop. So make sure to check these out down in the description. I know that will help you a lot. So let's talk about the most annoying thing that has driven me crazy when I got mirrorless cameras first. Have you noticed that when you're in the field and your camera goes to sleep or your camera turns off and you had pre-focused on a certain subject, the camera, once it turns back on, will be completely defocused? That was so annoying, but I finally figured out that there is a setting that can turn this annoying thing off. You go to the orange menu and navigate to retract lens on power off. Once I found this setting, my whole life pretty much changed because that was one of the most annoying things that I struggled with when I had mirrorless cameras at first. At the end, I also want to give you a little bonus tip. On some cameras, you can actually save all your settings onto memory card. So if you want to do that and you have an R5 or an R3, you can navigate to the yellow menu and navigate to save load onto card. It's a pretty cool feature to have because on these cameras, if you want to make some changes, try something new, you can save all your old settings onto your card, make the changes, and if you don't like it, you can then quickly put the card in and load your old settings. There are obviously more things to change when you get a brand new Canon camera body, but these are the 5 things that I change every time because they make my life a lot easier. I will post a full setup video about this R6 Mark II very soon, and I also have a few PDF guides available for like R3, R7 and R5 down in the description where I show you which screenshots, how I set up those cameras. If you're an R5 owner or have a similar camera to an R5, you also will find my setup video for the R5 very interesting, where I show you step by step everything I change on the R5 to get the most out of it in the field. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Now's the right time to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and I will see you in my next video very soon. Bye guys.